So are we good to go? Looks like it.
We are, and for the record, we do have a quorum.
Great, and welcome, Emily. I'll bring the meeting to order. Folks, good to see you. Tony, it's been a while. It sounds like you had an interesting trip. Wish I'd been with you. Folks, we have a pretty brief agenda today, and that is to review the one-pager that was pulled together by, I believe, Scott, Steve, and Todd. Are there, I guess the way to proceed here is just to see whether there are any comments regarding the one pager. I will tell you in full disclosure, I did have a conversation with Todd about one specific component of the letter, but before we get to that, perhaps we can open this up to the rest of the group for any comments, suggestions, editorial suggestions, things of that nature. Okay, Andrea.
My Teams is a little slow this morning. Good afternoon. I just wanted to share that I'm going to have to abstain from the vote because I don't have authority to offer a position on this bill yet. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Andrea. Scott, I saw your hand go up there for a second. Did you pull it, or it is still up? So I'll turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, Mark. Good to see everybody. I just wanted to say real quickly that as one of the editors of it, I support the one pager and continue to be in support of the legislation we recommended from that subcommittee. And also I got a note that I've got to run and get my child here. So when I drop off in 10 minutes, I don't think I'm risking a quorum. It looks like we have multiple members here. So I apologize. I got to head out at 1:45, but thank you.
Thank you. I saw Emily, please.
I'm unmuting.
You're muted, Emily. Emily, you're still on mute.
How about now? Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Can we just, can somebody just put words to how we would be using this one pager, both as, you know, members of the PRAC and the PRAC as a whole? We talked about it a little bit last time, but just as we're gonna, you know, review it for adoption, just to keep that in mind, what we're using it for.
I'll take a crack at that. Yeah, I'll take a crack at that, Emily. Typically, when there's legislation before the body here in Salem, the advocates of that or the requesters of that legislation typically have general information about what the bill does, what problems it seeks to resolve, so on and so forth. So in the course of our work and Todd reaching out to various individuals, it's pretty customary to have a sort of a one-pager that describes the bill, the background, so on and so forth. So that is sort of the lead, I guess, for lack of a better word, lobbying document that folks can use that describes the bill, and then of course subsequent questions always follow, but nevertheless that's sort of the lead, if you will, for legislation. And I don't know if Andrea wants to add anything to that or not, but that's, I think, a quick synopsis of why you have a one pager.
And may I have a quick follow-up? Just so would we, you know, as we are talking to lawmakers, we sort of all be, would the idea be that we're all using this one pager? I know people, you know, come at this representing, you know, different groups, specifically professionally and other interests. I mean, I'm hoping that we'll be unanimous on support and ideally active support for the bill, but I just like, yeah, are we, as all of us talk about, will be ideally referring to this paper?
So Emily, I will tell you that my association and my other clients have not taken a position on this bill. this would be coming, from my perspective, from the public records the PRAC itself. It does not necessarily speak to individual positions on the bill. It's from the council.
And so when we talk to our own constituents, if you will, or other groups that the individual members of the PRAC represent, would you be using this or expect, me to be using this to talk about the bill with, for example, SPJ or other journalist groups that I'm on the council sort of on behalf of? Would you expect to reference this piece of paper when you're talking to the special districts? Does it, in that relationship of explaining it, understanding that it's a PRAC bill, it's not like an SPJ bill or a special districts bill, but would you expect to use this to talk to groups that you're working with that would, potentially take a position on this or want information about this? Would you use that for this?
I can only speak for myself, Emily. I would certainly tell people who were listening to me, which there aren't that many, that this is the PRAC's position on the bill. If my association were to take a different position, I would then say, and here's the position of my association, and where we either align or depart in our views of this bill. Steve, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I was, wanted to back up what you're saying. Just that I think it'd be nice. I mean, we all have different perspectives, and we're going to talk about this bill differently to the people that we talk with. And it would be nice to at least have this shared perspective of the council as a whole when we're presenting it. Like, all of us are free to trumpet the bill or trash the bill, I guess, as we need to, based on our constituencies and our own views. But I do think, in fairness, as a member of this body, it would be great if each of us could also provide the council's position as a whole.
Any further discussion? Yes, Shasta, please.
Yeah, my understanding is that it would be something that would be sent to legislators and submitted as public testimony whenever there's a hearing for this. So I guess my question is, like, who exactly would be doing that once and if we approve it?
Well, we haven't really gotten to that discussion, Shasta, as to who's going to be necessarily working this in the building. And it is a fair question, and we're sort of, folks, I've been on this along with Steve. I don't know who else has been on here since the inception, but this is really the first time that we as a body have introduced legislation that we're working on. So we're sort of hoeing new ground, if you will. And so there are, and I've shared this with Todd, that we're sort of entering new territory for which we don't have bylaws, of course, and some other things. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful here in trying to make sure that we stay on the ranch here and not get too far out of bounds. But at the same time, I want to be sure that we're flexible and nimble enough to be able to do the work that we need to do and support the efforts that we've taken. Emily, go ahead, please.
My main comment on the one pager was that I think that the third bullet point of the section that says SB 417 is introduced on behalf of the council should probably be the first bullet point. I feel like the way that this is structured is that it says things like the first paragraph, some of that, what that did was codifying what was existing case law. Not all of it, but some of it. It's like kind of the most like non-change things of the bill. And the bottom bullet point is actually like the biggest thing that the bill does. And so that shouldn't be buried at the bottom. That should come first.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. I do have a few. Oh, Michael, I see that your hand is up. I'm sorry I didn't see you there. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I think I had my hand up and then decided this wasn't the time for this conversation. Although maybe I'll just ask my question anyway. Like, Emily asked about sort of the intended audience for this, and I guess the follow-up question is, now that we understand that a little better, does this document work for people? I like Emily's suggestion of just now, though. So really, this was an inadvertent hand, and you should proceed.
Very good. Tony, please.
I guess the way I will approach the final version of this document is to use it as a starting point, whether it's for social media, for just conversations. I'm very much appreciative of the fact that we stuck to the nature of one pager and kept it to one page, which I commend the authors of this. But in general, it's just a launching point for me to be able to regurgitate the summaries that are on here to people that I talk about it. I guess like my question would be, or if there's any plans to, and this could be for another meeting or whatnot, but just like social media kind of stuff through either Todd's social media account or whatnot to promote the bill. This language would be helpful, just again as a starting point to make it for the appropriate audience that we target on social media, if that's something you want to do.
Thank you, Tony. Todd, please. And then if I'm going to sort of raise my hand so I can get in the queue as well.
I was going to suggest that I share the screen with the one pager. I've highlighted both the two concerns you had, Mark, as well as I've moved the section Emily mentioned. I like what she said about moving it up front too. And maybe we could just work through this and get a vote on it and then talk about the strategy for getting it out.
I will say that I do have a 2 o'clock hard dead stop for myself. So forgive me if we run longer. I'll hand the baton over to Miss Harris. So why don't you go ahead and take us away, Todd?
Alrighty, I'm gonna find the document. Let's see. Well, that's my whole screen. You don't want that. Why? Okay. Here we go. Okay, so you can all see the one pager now?
Yes.
Great. So Mark, can I start with your two concerns and then we could go over Emily's request to move this section up?
Please.
Okay, so Mark, you had one suggestion in under the background section, second bullet point, to add the word Oregon or Oregon's public records law. So I did that. And then under background first subsection, you had concerns with the original highlighted sentence that it, well, you could talk about your concerns if you like, but what I took away from that was, in my opinion, you made me realize that that sentence didn't actually reflect the bill that was admitted or submitted to the legislature. I think it actually speaks to other ideas that were introduced that we did not actually vote on moving forward with. So I've come up with alternative language in bold that we could consider if you'd like to replace the highlighted sentence.
I like the revised language myself, Todd. Folks, Todd adequately and accurately described my concerns with the two of the three sentences that were in the background. He and I had a nice discussion about it, and he, in his infinite wisdom, came up with language that I believe far more appropriately reflects the bill that has been introduced. Steve.
Yeah, I think that sounds fine as rewritten. There's just a kind of grammatical error or typo. I think you have for whom and for whom twice.
For what and for whom did Kelly very much have run through?
Can you make it a tiny bit bigger by any chance, Todd?
Yes, I believe I can. Did it get bigger for you?
No,
Yes, thank you.
That-
That did, yeah.
that
took a delay.
did.
I guess there was a delay. Okay, let me see, Steve.
I'm sorry. Now that it's big, I can see it's not a typo for when
Okay.
and for whom. Okay,
Oh, good. Thank you.
that's fine.
But the bolded one is what's going to go away, right?
No, the
Oh.
yellow highlighted is the original,
Gotcha.
and the bold
Okay.
is the proposed replacement.
Steve, I still see your hand up. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody. Is that a legacy hand? It appears
Yes.
that it was.
Sorry.
So is mine, so forgive me.
And then, of course, if we replace the yellow highlighted sentence with the bolded sentence, it's then meant to then flow into the next section with starts therefore. So perhaps read them in conjunction to make sure they work for all of you.
Okay, I'm going to take.
I'm sorry, I just can't,
oh.
like, there's a banner over the, okay, thanks. Now I can see the full yellow.
Oh,
Thank
sorry. I wonder where that came from. Okay. I didn't see that on my end, Emily.
you. No, it's just part of the software. I apologize. Thank you.
No problem.
So the yellow is the original that would
Go away.
Yes.
go away. So we would completely eliminate the we would just, oh, that's just moving it up. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just the yellow highlight under background, not the yellow highlight under SB 417.
Sorry, I'm not I'm not tracking super fast today, I guess. Thank you.
No, and actually Oregon's is meant to be added, not removed. So maybe I'll underline it.
I was going to ask, when you say 22 meetings, were those were subcommittee meetings, weren't they?
Yes.
Yes.
So should I change
I might
that?
specify that because people will think that there've been maybe meetings that they can't find in the public record.
Yeah, some of this was just brevity for the sake of space, but we could probably make it work.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to see. Oh, Emily, please.
I like the bolded language change and the legislative subcommittee change. So I like all of these changes. The one thing I think the word "the" before Oregon's public records law should also be struck.
That works.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I go back through this to make sure it's grammatically correct and everything afterwards too.
So with the understood changes that have, let me do this. Are there any other suggested substantive changes that the council would like for this document? Okay, hearing none, what I'd like to do is get a vote on this with the understanding that any grammatical changes that folks find may still be made, but for the most part, we're all comfortable with the document as presented based on the substance of the document. Are folks comfortable with that at this time?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tony. All in favor, just indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing
Nay.
none. Oh, Emily, okay.
And I'm
Um,
sorry, I feel like I still have to vote against because of the concerns that I expressed back in November, but I appreciate that you took my feedback about shifting things around and better explaining what the bill does, but I just don't feel the same way. So that's the reason for my vote.
Understood, and thank you for the explanation, Emily. Okay. Mr. Chair, I know we don't have anything else on the agenda at this time. Is there any other business for the good of the order? We have another, according to my watch, 7 minutes, and I support ending meetings early, but Mr. Albert appears to want to lengthen our meetings. So Mr. Albert, please go right ahead.
I too support ending meetings early, but there are two things. One, figuring out a path for presenting this one pager, and I have a suggestion. And two, there's been discussion of whether or not we wanted to talk about the Secretary of State's bill that Stephanie Clark presented on last time.
Thank you, Todd, for reminding me. Why don't we take those in order then? Go ahead.
I volunteer myself. This bill and the Advocates Funding Bill, SB 510, have both been sent to the Senate Committee on Rules. I volunteer myself to send them this one pager. It will be done in conjunction with the Advocates Funding Bill to introduce the bills, and myself offer to talk about them and request their support to move these bills toward a hearing.
Are there any questions of Mr. Albert? And of course, anybody, Emily, I saw your lips moving, so go right ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Is there, I gather there's not a hearing scheduled on the House side. It would go through the Senate first. Other people.
It would have to.
It would make sense. Did you already say to also send it to our House sponsor at this point?
I'll share the one pager with Rep. Bynum, who's our co-chair in the House, but they did not introduce a House bill on time, so we're working one House at a time.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Steve.
Todd, will there be an opportunity for you to seek a meeting with, say, committee staff or leadership staff, regardless of whether a hearing is scheduled, say, sometime early in the session?
I always offer myself up for a meeting, but it's entirely up to each one of them on their own to decide if they want to meet with us or meet with me.
Yeah, I think it would be. That sounds great. If you're able to, I think get on their calendar to, present the one pager or answer any questions. That would be wonderful.
As a subcommittee chair, I would be happy to join in those efforts. Certainly, you're the co-chair, the vice chair, whatever. So I know you can carry it off 100%. But if that's helpful, I would be happy as the subcommittee chair to help out.
No, absolutely. I think the council and sorry, Mark, I was going to say the council and the subcommittee's leadership, I think, are integral to the work on this. So I will definitely keep everyone posted, and also specifically you and Mark about joining the meetings.
And I want to be clear that for those of you on the council, if you want to join Todd in any of these meetings, there's nothing preventing you from doing so. And frankly, I'd encourage you to do it. For those of you who aren't familiar with the legislative process, it is a world unto itself, and I'll just use that way to describe it. And but I do encourage you to do so. This is how policy gets made in the state of Oregon, and you all have a stake in it, and I believe that you should engage in it. Now, having said that, Todd, are you satisfied with the first sub-agenda item that's not on the agenda?
Yes, I'm ready to go, and I'll keep everyone posted on my progress.
Okay, the next item, real briefly, folks, is the Secretary of State's bill dealing with records retention. I believe that you all had a briefing on this during our last meeting with the Secretary of State's office. They have asked if the PRAC is going to engage and participate in that hearing. I'm open to any suggestions, motions, what have you. And if there are none, I'd be prepared to make one. Okay, well then may as well just go ahead and make a motion that the PRAC submit a letter in support of House Bill 2112 for the purposes of expanding the reasons for additional considerations for records retention by the state archivist.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion, please. I'm sorry, PK, go ahead.
Well, as a person from the Secretary of State's office, of course, I support this motion and was ready to second it as well. I think the state archivist has been extremely thoughtful about this and is really looking to find a mechanism to preserve documents that are important to our tribal partners. And so I think this is an important bill, and it's something that that the PRAC should support.
Well, and I've made the motion on assurances from the Secretary of State that this bill will not create a greater administrative burden for local records custodians. And with that assurance, I'm more than happy to have made the motion. Is there further discussion?
Sorry, I'll raise my hand.
Well, Andrea beat you, Emily, because she actually had a hand up. So I'm going to ask Andrea to go, and then you're in the on deck.
Sorry, just a quick note again that I'll have to abstain because I don't have the authority to take a position on a bill yet. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Andrea. Emily.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm struggling to find the like official raise your hand icon. I support sending that letter. I just wanted to again sort of clarify procedure because I know this is kind of new territory for the PRAC to be, you know, submitting legislation, weighing in on legislation and stuff like that. So, and you'd raise the point, Mark, of bylaws. So we just want to be, sort of cautious about what we do or if it's setting precedent or anything like that. So, yeah, I just wanted to open that up for discussion. Like, I mean, are we envisioning ourselves sending a letter of support for the fees bill, for example, when that gets a hearing, or like, do we need to consider it all, like anything about procedure if we just do simple yes and no's on supporting or overtly supporting legislation, just basically procedural?
Well, again, Emily, as you point out, and I'm just speaking for myself at this point, as you know, and as I pointed out, we don't have bylaws. We really haven't had this kind of a discussion before because, frankly, most of our discussions have been replacing the public records advocate for the last how many years. So, and I don't say that lightly, it's actually the honest to God's truth. So now we're sort of in this new area where we're finally actually doing our work, which is encouraging. But at the same time, because of all our attention being deflected, we really haven't formalized any of these sort of questions that you have raised. As a result, I do think that we're going to have a discussion about this. My hope is, frankly, I don't anticipate that we're going to be able to put together bylaws by the time this session is over. That's going to take some time and some thought. Having said that, what I'd like to do is encourage anybody who would like the PRAC to potentially take a position on a bill to bring that before us in a pretty fairly decent amount of time so that folks can have the ability to study and review. Now, having said that, there will be differences of opinion. And I have not really wrapped my head around whether or not the PRAC should be taking positions when we have split votes that are fairly even. My goal has always been to get to consensus or as close to consensus as possible. And I certainly understand Emily's concerns and not being able to support 417. And I want to respect that. And I want to respect everybody's position on these things. So having said all that, I think that we're just going to have to play it by ear and see how things go. If people bring forward bills that we end up virtually unanimously supporting, then we'll go forge ahead. But at some point, we're going to run into some challenges whereby we are not all going to see eye to eye. And then we have to decide as a body whether or not we're going to be using things by a consensus approach or near consensus approach, or if we're going to go support a bill when the vote is 7-5 or 7-6. That's where I think we get into some dangerous territory. And I just don't know how to adequately resolve that at this time. I'd certainly take input from folks, and I'm not trying to dictate how we do it. I just want to be very cautious because again, we've built a very collaborative group here, and I don't want that to be affected by positions on individual bills. We all represent interest groups that can speak for their own purposes, and I think that we play a little bit of a different role from our PRAC position versus who we're working for or representing. And I hope that that makes sense. And I've probably spoken much too much, and we're already over time. Way to go, Todd. I'm teasing, of course.
Sorry, that's my fault. I just wanted to say, I know you were over time, and I appreciate that understanding, you know, you're not trying to dictate it, but I really appreciate your sort of, that's a very sensible approach, it seems to me, and it's just very helpful to get to sort of lay that out, I think. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And folks, again, I really don't want to be dictating this. I just feel that without bylaws, we're all on a bit of a rudderless ship, and I hope that we can continue all rowing in the same direction. I think that we are for the most part. Todd, please.
Yes,
Save me.
well, no, I don't think I'm going to, unfortunately, because who is writing the support for SB 2112? And that's probably the wrong number. The Secretary of State's bill we just agreed to support in writing. And unfortunately, I cannot volunteer to do that.
So I'm going to ask whether, and folks, this is, in my view, a 2 or 3 paragraph letter. This is not an extensive, detailed letter. If Yufeng is available to do something, just a draft or something, I'm more than happy to work with her on that. Needless to say, I'm in the Capitol at the moment and have a number of meetings. I can't just draft something up, but I do think we could probably just introduce ourselves as the PRAC. We've reviewed the bill. We think it's going in the right direction, and as a result, the PRAC supports the bill. Thank you for your consideration. Done.
Mark, unfortunately, I wasn't volunteering Yufeng either. She has her hands full leading certain projects in the office, and I'm here to do what I can for the council, but I can't do everything, and so I'm requesting that this come from within the council itself. But I like what you said. So
when's it due? When's it due?
The bill is going to be heard, I believe, at 1 o'clock on Thursday.
I can put up.
Emily, if you draft it, I'll work with you to get it done. Okay. Why don't
time, but I can do some paragraphs and send them to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. So we've dispensed of that, Todd. We'll take care of it. Emily and we will send that to you for circulation. Folks, just please respond with a thumbs up or thumbs down. If you have a thumbs down, though, I'd request that you make any suggested edits that will get you to a thumbs up. Okay.
Do we have to vote on?
Nah. We already voted on submitting a letter, so I'm comfortable with us doing that. Having said that, is there anything else for the good of the order? Steve, please.
I actually don't think we did vote on it. Did I forget that?
Yeah, I think we voted on just the
Oh, we made the motion and we had a
second. Yeah.
And then I'll take a voice vote, if I could, for the PRAC submitting a letter of support for House Bill 2112 that will be heard in the House Rules Committee on Thursday at 1 o'clock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain. Apologies. This wasn't on the agenda, and I just came back from OFLA leave and I'm kind of behind. So no concerns about it, but abstain.
Emily, we're just going to call you the naysayer from here on out. I'm teasing, of course. Okay, very good. Emily, thank you for that. And is there anything else for the good of the order? Okay, thank you everybody for your attention and your participation today. I don't know when our next meeting is scheduled. I'm sure Todd at some point in the near future will let us know. If we don't have anything scheduled, Todd, perhaps you, me, and Emily could get together for a quick talk about next meeting, if that makes sense.
Yes, we don't have one in the calendar, so we'll have to do that.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for participating today. I hope each of you have a wonderful week, and stay tuned for more, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.